Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Racer Dude, and I'm joined by Zentor. This episode is sponsored by the First Armada. The First Armada is constantly pushing the envelope of Liberty Navy, always on the front lines. They're also in the lab, trying to make Liberty Navy modern and exciting. The First Armada is also on the front line of many recent server events, so check some of the events out, role play, faction information, and the links provided below. Speaking of First Armada, Zentor, who do we have as our guest today?
So, leader and creator of the First Armada, we have Lemon joined with us today. Lemon is a big name here on Discovery. He joined somewhat slightly earlier than myself. But without further ado, welcome, Lemon. Tell us about yourself. What brought you to Discovery, and what you've been up to lately.
First of all, guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm really amazed that someone actually takes their time to create something like a podcast, put so much effort into it. So kudos for that. Second of all, I know it's a topic later, but I want to give a big shout out to Sam Dennis, the admin on Discovery Freelancer. And I know I saw a thread there that people are saying, with deepest regrets he's leaving. I actually spoke to him, and he's done so much work for us. He's not getting any younger. He's got GMS to run. So I really want to thank him for all the work he's done. He's taught me a lot as well. And I don't think we have to be sad for him leaving. I think that we have to celebrate what he's done and really thank him. So if you are listening to this, go ahead, thank him in the thread, and that's basically the main thing. Now, I can go into talking about myself, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And props for that shout out too.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And so this time here, this is all about you, Lemon. However much you want to talk about and how much you want to say, about yourself with Freelancer, yourself personally, whatever you want to talk about. The platform is yours.
Let's go, guys. So basically, I think I'm the typical Corona child. Basically, I was playing Dota. I was freaking addicted to that, and when Corona came, suddenly all my busy social life disappeared. So I remembered I used to play this game called Freelancer back in the day. So basically, I reinstalled it. I played the campaign in vanilla, and then I was like, hang on, maybe I should explore after the campaign. So I Googled some mods, and I found Discovery Freelancer. So I jumped in during COVID 2020. Obviously, in about 20 minutes, I was in the Omicrons, shooting gunboats and getting killed. So that was pretty much my journey, I explored it, and then basically I explored a lot of factions. I think my first faction were the Liberty Rogues, are still active. So I think Hemlock and Lucas, if anyone knows them, they were the first people that took me under their wing. Well, and then basically I transitioned into Liberty Navy, later discovered Gallia. And that's pretty much it, I'm a standard player who came in during COVID and still kind of enjoys the game.
Right on. So tell us about the factions, the area of play that you're really interested in, and the First Armada, your current project.
Well, so First Armada is the current most active project. One thing I want to say that the First Armada isn't really my project. Of course, founded it and I sort of do the work there, but it's basically, it has no high command. We have faction-wide voting. We had actually a recruit, Westo, who plays in the core and stuff like that, Felix, in First Armada. We gave a recruit complete control over our Discord. So basically I go to our crewman, used to go to him, was like, can I change this hashtag and stuff like that. So when we talk about the First Armada, we're not really talking about me. We are talking about Renegade. By the way, shout out for making your awesome intro. You want to check him out. If you guys want to thank him, join the First Armada Discord, join his DJing sessions because he's a professional DJ. Well, what I mean, he basically does it very well, and you can listen to his DJing. So the First Armada is not really my work. It's basically Westo, Renegade. We have some PvPers as well. Upjump, Phoenix, they came in for snaps and cups. Breeze, Orzo, Slyquin, Natasha, Sorin, all these guys, basically Kustian. First Armada isn't one person. I have learned a lot by failing in my previous factions, and especially in these really, really big ones. If you guys know about the really big factions, a big issue often comes that suddenly the high command becomes detached. You stop even knowing who your newcomers are. You don't even know who they are. Suddenly a lot of the chat moves into the high command chat. you become detached. So when it comes to the first Armada, it should be the opposite like that. We're trying to make basically a community project. A lot of people chip in. So for this one, I can't take credit, but for the faction I can take credit for, absolutely, is the Front de Liberation de Gallia, which Zentor is a part of. Do you remember that faction, Zentor?
Yeah, I think I do. This was actually the second real big one that I interacted you with. I met you mostly through BMS, the Borneo Mining Syndicate, and off of that, you were springboarding into Gallia. So, yeah, FLG was a big project.
Yeah,
tells.
Yeah, I remember FLG very well as well. That was the first major roleplay contract that you gave when I started up Constellation Express.
Absolutely remember it. We gave out so many contracts, and I think where the first Armada is sort of like just a new community take on Liberty Navy, where we try to like help out the beginners and really wide interest, and it's been done before, right? It's been done in different places. FLG is the number one, actually, first ever Maki official faction. It was the first official faction that I actually brought to officialdom, and Zentor here has been a lot of help, and I'm still freaking proud that if you tell a random person on the server Maki, they think it's Union course, or they ask you what the hell is that, they have no idea what it is. That we made it official and we still last until this day. I think it's like a miracle.
Yeah, it is definitely an achievement, and we had a ton of fun in building it up too. And FLG's, I mean, as all factions that Lemon really builds up, it takes a unique take on the RP, the gameplay. It really gets a lot of people involved. So FLG was
still is, by the way. We just
project.
got our SRP battleship. Haste, don't delete this if you're listening to this. Wants to delete the redemption from the game. Don't you freaking do it. We spent 3 years trying to get SRP. By the way, we had a massive project. It was multiple projects, literally 100 people, including you, by the way, Racer. They were included in this huge project where we were trying to get Gallia a little bit of balance, because there's no unlawful battleships at all. So we were trying to fix that, and all that effort for the ID line got put into one SRP. So incredible, massive overkill, literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours of work. Haste will delete our battleship, so do not do this. If there is one impact of this podcast, the battleship won't get deleted. Other factions I'm in, so FLG is the number one, basically my hard thing. It will never fail as long as I live. And
it's your baby.
Basically my baby. Apart from that, I'm also the one IC of Gallic Navy. You can see I'm very involved in Gallia. There, I really had no ambition. I had zero ambition to actually lead that. My basically pet in Gallia is the Gendarmerie. You guys, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but basically.
Gallic police.
Yes, but the thing is, in Gallia, there's no actual civilian police. The military just took over. And gendarmes, they basically are a military police. So they're fully enlisted. You have to go through the whole shebang. And we're basically trying to work it out, trying to get them net as well on dual ID on one faction. Yeah, that's basically just trying to keep Gallia alive. Then somehow I'm also the Kaiserliche Rheinwehr, second in command, Rheinwehr military. How I got into this one, so shout out to my RM buddies. Basically, the faction was dying, right? It's like an ancient faction, and there was this guy played Gunboats Darkstar, who taught me a lot in Discovery. Probably most people won't remember him. He was the gunboat spammer. He taught me a lot. He basically showed me how to trade, how to PvP, how to do everything, basically. And at the time when he was still playing, he asked me to join Red Military. I was like, nah, I'm playing in Liberty. I don't care. But then I saw the faction is failing. People are making other factions, putting them under the carpet. So I just came in, single-handedly revived it, brought a bunch of people in, and it's still alive and kicking. So there's another faction. Then there's Union Course. I'm not in the HC for this one, but we also brought it to officialdom with Kerty. So shout out to him. Shout out to Redcroft and Breeze. Mm-hmm. Then I have a couple of side projects, which is the Bretonia Rogue Rangers. Do you guys know what the Mollies are?
Yes. Yes, the Dubliners, the angry Dubliners who are pissed about their gold problems.
The problem is everyone knows the Mollies. Nobody plays them. That's the terrible thing. So basically, just so they exist, just so people can log their ships once per year. I think every time someone joins the Bretonia Rogue Rangers, we're like, listen, we are very strict here. You have to log at least once per 5 years or you're out, okay? We're very strict like this.
I absolutely love your RP character for the BRR though. I mean, he is. I just every single time I see a post with him, I'm
Do you
putting a
know what the
smile on my
origins of
face.
that
So
are? He speaks like that, right? So
no.
basically, a lot of people have the pet peeve that okay, they're based on like this Irish stereotype, the Mollies, but again, we are in the future, thousands of years in the future. Bretonia isn't like it's not a monolith, demographically speaking. So obviously, because I lived in Scotland and missed it, I wanted to meme as a Scottish accent character. So I used the deeply devised objection that people had that Mollies are only Irish and brought in this Scottish character. You can actually find the RP that I do is actually watered down. What I do is trying to make it a lot more readable than actual Scottish slang is. And there is a website called Scots Translate. Online, you can actually find out. You can translate normal English into Scottish slang. So yes, so this is what I actually use, and it's basically just nostalgia. And then the last faction that I sort of care about is the Core Force. Honestly, it was again, Core died. The official faction was just gone. We just wanted to keep it. I just like playing my characters. I don't like flying alone. So if I want to play a character, I'm just gonna make a faction, Core Force is exactly this. Like, we don't really care if people log or not, and as long as the official core faction exists, we don't really have to do much, So yeah, those are my factions. As you can see, I like variety. I might be a little bit crazy running everything, and pretty much that's like when someone asks me, why would you do this? Why are you helping the new players? Why are you making these events or trying to get these contracts? Basically, what you have to understand is that my entire viewpoint on Disco is as a faction leader, as someone that tries to make regions active, factions active. Basically, most of the things that I do in Disco are going to be in the lens of, okay, is this going to like bring people in? Is this going to keep people in? Is it okay if I piss off some veterans, if like, some of the newer guys maybe have fun and stick around for longer? There's basically a lot of the controversy that I bring in, is pretty much trying to push the people that play the game, and especially as you guys probably know, as a faction leader, it's pretty tough to like keep people interested.
Yeah, and it's true. You have been a controversial figure over the years, and I've always been one of those people on this side of the fence that sees that everything it seems like you do is generally geared at getting people together and getting people involved in things, and especially friendly for new players getting involved. And yeah, you've definitely ruffled some feathers over the years, but I think that your approach has been really good. And you're probably one of the most successful people that I have met on Discovery that has been able to grow a player base in different regions of space that are underplayed. So absolutely props to you. And from our private talks, Vicious Jeff, who couldn't make it today.
There's Jeff, by the way. I was looking forward to him. You mentioned my character on your freaking podcast.
He's writing. He's at work right now, but he says, "I wish I could be in the booth today. Big fan. Looking forward to listening when it's released." So,
if you missed the previous episode, I want to give shout out to Vicious Jeff. He was telling us that he joined Discovery, and he was flying on his Ajira in Gallia, and he happened to run into the one person who gives a single "I'm sorry, children" fuck about Gallic laws. Because we have the gendarmerie, he ran into me. He was like, "Oh, there was some sort of police, and actually have the MD to this day." And I definitely remember him, So I find it, Jeff, if you're listening to the recording, I see you. Okay, this is just another newbie Lolwood, That I could have shot you, but I just let you go. I took literally 5 units. Ajira white boxes, I took 5 units. It's like, you're going to EFL base anyway, whatever, just go. I got my report right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure you made a pretty positive impact on him for sure. So.
Yeah, so this is, I think I will. This is why we'll never agree with people that are either extreme RPers, like very strict, or people that are very extreme PvPers, because they basically see themselves as better than the other side, The other side is a
Right.
little bit worse than them. If someone focuses on RP, obviously, if you play Disco only RP hardcore, make long paragraphs and everything's researched. If someone comes in and doesn't know like basic info card stuff, you will not like that. Same as when you PvP and you practice a lot. You will get frustrated at someone who can't even hit a freaking snack, in 30 minutes, and you have to do all the work.
Yeah.
So I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's possible to create a balance. God knows I tried. I keep failing. All the sides will understand each other, the casual players, the PvPers, the RPers, and stuff like that. But I keep trying, and that's basically my lens on Discovery is to be somewhere in the middle. Try to get the sides to understand each other, and they will always be pissed. It can be that, but I'm gonna keep trying to actually make them understand the other one, and maybe even fly together.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
absolutely.
well, good luck to that, because each side, they feel like they're right, and that it has to be some kind of competition or some sort of argument when it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It's just how about we just play well together and have fun with this together, and if it means that you have to sit and actually role play instead of PvP, or if that means that you actually have to maybe water down your role play a little bit, or you might have to PvP right away instead of role play. It seems like people really stick to their guns and don't like to see
I don't think
compromise.
it's possible. Pretty much this is just people play for fun. They come in, don't think about it as a job unless they are a faction leader or an admin. That has to think about like the impacts or death of what they do. People just do what they like. I don't think I tried many times, but we make massive, like in the first Armada, we had a big incentive, like 1.5 billion. So just people should fight in con, not just for winning, but for dying in con, you get money. Right? You actually get in-game credits, like codes, literally. And like the PvP, like one of the snowstorm. If you're listening, we had a big argument. It's like, oh, this is so stupid. You should only reward wins. I was like, no. Point is not to get you aces to practice. You sit in con all day. You live there, right? I'm here sitting here trying to get the guys that only power trade, that die in 2 seconds in a fight, to actually go and die in 2 seconds in con. Actually put in some practice in. So you try those incentives. People get excited in the first few days, and then eventually some of them stick. Most of them, though, they go back and stick to their RP power trading or other stuff. So I don't think the key is to make people do things that they don't want to do. I think the key is to just try to make the sides understand each other's point of view, Just
bring people together.
Yeah, exactly. I switched to Czech there. Not sure why. Yeah. So basically, try to get people to understand the other side, that they have different motivations, that there's just no way that you can force a RPer to go ahead and practice in con, and that's okay. You don't agree with them, you might avoid them, but that people will be okay with each other. That's basically like the goal, the ideal scenario that can happen. I don't think we just can't force people doing what they don't want to do.
Right, for sure. So moving right along, now we know a little bit about Lemon. We're going to jump into our forum topic. Probably not going to spend a ton of time on this, but did want to go over the hottest take on Disco, I guess, was this post that came up yesterday by St. Dennis right before he took off. This one was warning the community about the use of pulses as a means of regenning power core. And this generated quite a lot of hype, a lot of negativity. Kind of want to ask you guys what you thought about the actual game mechanic, first of all, it as an exploit, and the reaction of the community to this post. So, Lemon, you've done a lot of.
I'm wondering what you guys before I talk, because I'm really like I've been like, not this one, but this. It's not just this in isolation, right? The community post, it basically follows up on the 2 sanctions to 9th Legion. So I'm wondering, what do you guys actually think? Zentor and Racer, what is your take on this one?
On the warning itself, or?
Yeah, warning itself and the mechanic,
Okay, so
how should
my take on this is this, as a game mechanic, has been in here as long as I've been here, as far as I know. And I've actually been in fights where people have, purposely told me to shoot them so that they could regen their core. Like, it was just something that I was familiar with as being part of the way things were. And to me, if it was actually an exploit, it should have been worked out of the game mechanics by now, in my opinion. And so I'm not sure why this. I guess because there's been a series of sanctions recently that has led to this coming up as a warning. But I think that if this exists as a game mechanic and it's something seen so negatively by staff, then it should have been fixed at this point. It should have been patched out. And the warning obviously kind of came across as a little strange the way it did. I think that it shouldn't have been presented the way it was, and I don't see why this couldn't have been either patched out or put into the rules itself. But I don't see that this would be a very good rule, in my opinion, because it's something that you can't hardly keep track of. You're just going to take different people's hearsay and whatnot. And I heard that some people were saying, well, maybe because a lot of people have been posting a lot more videos lately, that it's easier to find people doing it. But I don't think that it would be a very good rule. I think that we should try and focus on fixing it if it's a game mechanic we don't want to see.
What if it can't be fixed? If it's just like inherently into a game mechanic, what do you think, Zentor?
I mean, if it's inherently there, I don't think it's something you're going to be able to keep tracking and dealing with as a rule break, because it's just going to be round and round and round. I see this coming up in every single cap fight, and when you get a bunch of caps together, it's going to be really hard to keep track of those types of things. And so I don't think that it should be made into a rule.
Yeah, and I agree. A lot of your points I agree too. Yeah, especially with recently the big events going on where you got caps around, and it's just so I don't even know how you can track that. I just don't know the tools that admins and moderators have to be able to track and see if it's happening. But
I don't see how it can't be fixed either, though. Like, from a dev perspective, if they can't fix it with balance, it seems like it should definitely be a coding solution out there.
Yeah, and I'm with that too. But again, I don't know a lot about coding, and I don't know a lot about like the behind the scenes, numbers and letters that go into the game itself. So it might be something where maybe there is a fix, but by fixing that, it causes 5 more issues. And they just haven't found a fix for those issues yet. So it could be a revolving door of those things. So my take on it may be slightly controversial. We've talked about this topic as far as the pulse weapons regenerating the power core, and I kind of take it to another subject or another person. We talked about Sally. This person Sally, I think everyone knows who Sally is at this point, and how they're always asking questions with the rules and different things like that. I come from NASCAR, and especially back in the day with NASCAR, there was a lot of gray area in the rules. If there's a rule that's worded this way, but you do something outside of the wording of that rule, they would do it. And so there's a phrase in NASCAR says, "Don't be a rule breaker, be a rule maker." And so if you look at the NASCAR rule book, it's massive just because they have so many rules. I could go on for hours, all sorts of different fun stories, but so in some regard, I respect people that are able to find these things, and then people like Sally who are trying to find little niches and rules to an extent. Say this patch rolls out in a few months here, and it comes with new exploits with PvP or trading or mining, whatever it is. I feel like there should definitely be some guidance around that, as far as if you see an exploit, don't do it. For sportsmanship and gamemanship of the game, just don't do it. But also, to your point, Zentor, after numerous patches and multiple years, this thing is still in the game, to the point that fleets are actually using tactics around this exploit.
So I was literally introduced to Cap Combat, like that this was a game mechanic, not that it was an exploit. Like, I didn't even know that this was seen as like a
Right.
derogatory thing.
So how would you have felt, Zentor, if suddenly one day you log onto your ship and all your guns are gone, and you look at the sanctions and warnings and found out you've been sanctioned?
Yeah, so for this particular thing, I would be obviously perturbed and annoyed, and would want to talk to the admin about that, because I mean, especially in this situation, as far as I know, it's not written anywhere that it's something that you cannot do. And so if it's not written anywhere, then I would obviously contest this issue completely, and would want that reversed until either A, it is put in stone as a rule, which, like I said, I don't think this particular situation is a very good example of making a rule off of it, or B, that it gets patched out and removed as the exploit that it is apparently.
So what if there's a thread on the forum in the rules or somewhere? Yeah, known exploits. So things like the power core regeneration with the pulse weapons, or like power traders, they planet dive and things like that. What if there's just a list of known exploits?
It would have to be hard
It's already
coded in the
there. It's
rules.
already there, by the way.
Okay.
It's already there. Like you can't bump ships. You can't suicide trade and stuff like that. So basically, they can just add that,
Yeah. So
when it comes to this,
some are, but like for example, this exploit, and I'm sure there's other
Right.
exploits out there that are
Yeah.
not written down. What if the admin's made like an actual bona fide list, like remove specific rules in the rule book, as far as like no pumping capital ships, things like that. Instead, no use of exploits. Follow this list for known exploits, things like that. So maybe not so much. Maybe not.
I
So
think
much.
that a simpler solution is always a better one, and I don't think we should make players have to go searching through lists of potential exploits. So I think it's something that if it's an exploit, if it's a game mechanic, we need to try and hard fix it, and if we can't, then like put it in stone as a rule someplace, or into the actual rules, so that there's one centralized information piece for all of these things. But if there's more and more and more exploits, I mean, if we have to dig to go find them, then I think that's an issue. And you jump into way too many territories where people don't know, and they shouldn't be made to look through pages of forums to find them.
Yeah, and it's for sure like this specific bug. It for sure is an issue. You can't have something like this for years and years and then finally put the hammer down. But definitely I think something should be out there for people like you, Zentor, when you first get introduced to fleet combat, where you don't know. If something you're doing something, why am I targeting my ally? That should never be the case in any combat. So, a place where you can look and like, oh, this is a known exploit. I can get sanctioned for this. Something like that. It'll help people not familiar.
So what's your take on this, Lemon?
Well, it's kind of difficult, isn't it? But I think for me, first of all, this one will be fixed. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they will just hard remove draining power core with pulses. They will just remove it, which will remove also this. So it's not ideal, right? You will take away a legitimate feature. I use this almost every day. When you shoot someone with pulses, it removes part of their power core. This is the side effect of that, so they will remove that, But this is by the way partly like people think Dennis left because of this. This was just a long time burnout. We can talk about that a little bit later. Basically, this has been like a big topic recently, and I'm not sure if you are aware, but it started with Alucard, Nineth Legion.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that.
Yeah, basically what happened was that he released his own video. First of all, I have a question for you guys. Do you think what should be the approach to people releasing their videos and then being sanctioned based on them, without being talked to? Like literally he posts a video, second day he's sanctioned. Do you think it's okay?
So they're being sanctioned for what? For content of the video? For stuff that they do in the video?
It happened twice that basically the exploit that they thought he was using is that he would shoot a weapon and then select some other object, And what happens is that from the third person view, it seems like there's a massive desync. Like you feel the projectile is flying somewhere completely different, right? So they did this. There has been a massive uproar. They're like, oh, come on. Like he's doing it with pulses and he was saying he didn't know about it, and eventually the sanction got overturned. That's where the whole discussion started, right? This exploit where there's a massive desync, and for me, I don't have any concrete proof, but I always thought that this is part of the game, Like you said in the NASCAR, some of the aces on cups, they always they seem to be able to do this that their heavy mortars would fly like completely somewhere else, I would get hit by them. It wasn't just a small; it was like literally like 40 degrees, and I'm still hit by them. And I saw like the aces do this, and then I found out. Oh, hang on! I always like was asking them. There must be some sort of method to this. You guys you are so good, and I always like looked up to them. Oh, you are pros. You one of these tricks, how to actually make the big desync. And then I found out, everyone was saying no, there's nothing like this. Then I found out in the discussion, that it actually exists. If you select a neutral object when you fire a projectile, it actually has a huge desync. Someone thinks that it flies, 45 degrees. So it's very tough. And then more and more started coming. Then I think DTR got warned by I had no idea this exists. If you trade and you alt tab, your ship will appear to jump in space, for others. You know about this?
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, they got warned for this.
It happens to me once in a while because especially for like out in some systems where there's no trade lanes, I'll have it in windowed mode, and I'll alt tab, and sometimes like it'll look like your screen is frozen. And so what it is, it's a desync from the server. And so if you were to look at my ship at that time, it would literally look like my ship is in one space or in one spot in space and not moving at all. And so when I click back to the window, it'll then be where I'm supposed to be. So I might
really
be then 28K away. Yeah. So people use it. I try to, if I see that, I try to click back in the game real quick. And I don't know the sequence of how to do it. It's just, for me, it seems to randomly happen. So I try to, if I see it, I try to click back in the game real quick and then I'll tab out again. But some people have it down to a science, to where once they get into a system, they, go to, and then they'll do that. So then pirates won't be able to get them.
I didn't know. Crap. There's the question here. I think this one will be fixed as well. I think Lars came to the chat and he says, okay, we'll be able to fix this one, so the ship will appear in the same place. Yeah, that's the problem. If you don't have an extensive list of things like this one, you never would realize someone actually cheated. I've seen this hundreds of times. That I go into a system and someone, for example, there's like these ORP grudges. Oh, we hate you pirates and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, he disconnected. Oh, he had a lag, didn't see anything by it. And it's been done to me like hundreds of times, right? And you don't even know about this. So you never think twice. You don't even like report them. And you do it yourself as well. Exactly as you said, I have 2 monitors. I do something else when I trade because I'm not a maniac like you that would enjoy trading, okay? My life is too short. I have to watch a show or something or do some work. So I'm always tabbed. I always jump in. And then I'm also lazy, right? I don't want to print screen and then copy. I have to, if you check my DSAs, like 5 times during an interaction, I swap between full screen and a windowed mode because I use my screen grabber that uploads directly, So yeah, and that's the thing. If you don't know that these are the exploits and you do them, then happens to you what happened to Alucard, right? You basically, in good faith, you record yourself playing. You basically do something you didn't know, that you weren't aware that this is something that's banned. You didn't even know that the mechanic exists. It happened to him twice in a row. Literally the same guy. First it was the desync thing when he was just clicking random objects, and then they assumed that he must have a macro because his primaries were chain firing a little bit too well. The pattern was the same. Now they're finding out that maybe it was like interrupted pattern, But this is the thing. I think these things, if you can fix them, obviously priority. I think those 2 things will be fixed. The jumping of parallel losses, it will be fixed. And we'll do like the workaround around the pulse thing by simply not removing the mechanic altogether. Basically nerf passes a little bit. But if you can't fix it, I think you just have to list it because people will just by accident. It will seem like they're doing it on purpose when they are not aware of that. You will never notice, like me, hundreds of times. The same traders always jumped when I was around there. I was like, all right, they must have disconnected. No big deal. I'll get them next time. But then you have a small amount of population that is using these exploits in the game, and everyone else is none the wiser. They have no idea it's happening to them. They might actually do it by accident, record themselves, and the people that know about this he will then go ahead and report and sanction them, like has happened. And I think this basically led the community warning. It led into this. It wasn't in isolation. It was basically the admins weren't sure what to do, because negative, if you put it into the rules, is that people will suddenly know how to do it, right? So if you have the desync back, you put it in.
Right.
Suddenly, like someone who comes from Rebirth, the server that doesn't give a single damn about rules and stuff like that, they come in and they will suddenly be desyncing and do it again. Noobs who will never report them and stuff like that. I think this is like a conundrum for the admins, because they don't want to list it, so they are worried. There can be sometimes paranoia and stuff, and people will be abusing it. We have extra work on our hands that people will start reporting each other, every time someone disconnects,
Right.
So, and there was a massive backlash from me as well, by the way, because I know Alucard, and I basically believed him. And that they didn't talk to him. They watched his YouTube video. They instantly banned him for 3 months and took all his ships. Like without even asking him, hey, like, are you aware of what you're doing? And they did it again. 2 weeks later with the macro, it's again being discussed. Again, it will probably be like lessened or overturned because the evidence is not conclusive. Basically, that led to the community warning.
Right. I think. Yeah. This really good points here. And I think that the lesson that we should definitely take away is that you should use the rules, or you should administer the rules rather with good faith, and assume that players are. I mean, I know that this can be really criticized, but assume that players are, doing things with good intentions, and if they don't know, then they don't know, and you should at least try to communicate that. Better communication, like you were saying, that they laid down the hammer without really even communicating or asking him if he even was aware of the situation. So yeah, in those situations, you really gotta just kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. I think, at least, especially if they don't have a history of offenses.
Especially if they post their own video, and you aren't 100% sure. You basically are using they in good faith, like record themselves playing. You're banning them anyway, right? You're banning them anyway. Why don't you? You know who they are. You watch their freaking YouTube channel. You know they posted. They ask them, hey, what the hell? If they can't explain, okay, bye. Like it's that simple. This is why the community was warned, by the way. This was it. I'm 90% sure that this was the process, because when they handed out the individual sanctions like this, it was overturned. There was a massive backlash. Like, okay, we can't do it this way, right? And there was actually a violation report on someone, again, from their own video. There was even hidden chat that was telling me, okay, shoot me, I'm going to recharge my core, It was like hidden. It was a violation report. And if the Alucard stuff didn't happen, they would just do a sanction to the person. They were like, okay, this somehow isn't working. Let's try something different. And I just put it out, warn the community. We're not going to say exactly what the exploit is, So they tried something different, and obviously it backfired. I think most of us probably agree that this wasn't fortunate. But I'm just telling you, I understand the thought process of the admins. They are just, as you said, sometimes it's not here. We don't have the good faith. They don't assume the good faith of the players. There was the worry that if you list those exploits, people will just exploit them around the clock, They tried something different, and it basically didn't work out, And they will, I'm for sure, they will change the approach going forward.
And
certainly.
That's something I never thought about as well, Lemon, what you're talking about. Like, if we do list them, then that gives a list of things for people to exploit. If they're not, for whatever reason, if they're not good at PvP or whatever, maybe I might browse through that list to, maybe get a little better. But, and Zentor, you said something as well, just about, you're doing these exploits and suddenly they're coming out with these sanctions and bans and everything. And we've talked about it on the show before, Discovery making big swings. You can't have something that is, quote unquote, acceptable, as far as a tactic or something that's being done in PvP. And then suddenly people start getting sanctions and warnings and bans for doing this thing. You can't do a big swing like that. There has to be some sort of program in place where you start putting out warnings and
well, on that same note though, Ray, so you do have to consider the fact that perhaps some or all the admins are not even aware that you're not aware that this, like, St. Denis, I don't think, as far as I'm aware, does a lot of fleet combat. So
Oh,
if he sees, somebody in videos that are saying like, "Hey, shoot me with your pulses," like he might see that as nefarious. Whereas somebody like me or Lemon, who, I mean, I don't do a lot of caps, but I was introduced to this tactic a long time ago, and I
Oh,
thought
you
that it was
were?
just
I
part of the
have
game.
no idea. What is this, like a secret underground bunker where you people tell each other these exploits? Is everyone so secretive? I never heard of any. All those recent exploits, I had no idea they exist, right?
I didn't know
didn't
anything
even know
about the rubber
macros
band
failed.
thing you were talking about, but I did know about the pulses,
Uh-huh.
and so my perspective coming into this is I thought that this was just part of the game mechanics that we were just all aware and
Oh, right.
use, and so somebody like Dennis might not know that. I mean, he doesn't do cap fights, and he sees that, he's like, might jump to this is nefarious, just because of his game perspective. And so yeah, I think it comes down to communication and making sure that we're all like on the same page, and assuming, especially if they don't have a history of rule breaks, that maybe they weren't aware that this is not acceptable. So
And
yeah, good point there.
my rebuttal to that would be exactly what you said: communication. I totally understand that. Even me, like, I'm not really into PvP circles. Once in a while, I'll do some PvP, or I'll go to con, but for kind of medical reasons, I can't do a lot of PvP, at least for a long extended period of time. So I'm not familiar with PvP, but I feel like as an admin, and by extension, this goes to developers and moderators as well. Your job is to know what's going on within the community. So that means getting outside of your zone, getting outside of your wheelhouse at times, going out and talking to people and figuring out what it is that they're doing. So that that where St. Denis or whoever, they don't do PvP or they don't do fleet combat. I'm sorry, but that's at some point the player base needs to put a standard on the admin team, the staff team, because standards are put on us. We've got that rule book, but a standard needs to be put on staff. And once in a while they've got to get out of their shell and they've got to look around, see what's going on in the community, and that means having to do something you may not enjoy doing. But you got to get into these circles. You have to figure out what people are doing, and whether if that's creating a thread for developer feedback or game mechanic feedback, whatever it is that they got to do, if they want to try to do it passive. But that is something I find no excuse for that. That's something going back to NASCAR. They do inspections around these cars, and there's officials that are walking around the garages all the time, and what they're looking for new things that teams are doing to their cars to get an unfair advantage. Admins need to be doing
But
that same thing.
I mean, we do have to give them a grain of, that, like, you still might miss stuff even if you did do all that. And I mean, this is their hobby. This isn't definitely not their job or whatever. But I mean, certainly talking to people and getting information and feedback is super, super helpful. And I don't think the staff has ever really asked for enough feedback. But I do think your approach just now was maybe a little harsh. We do want to, like, if I became an admin right now, I wouldn't really change the part of the game that I normally operate within. I would obviously want to listen to people as much as possible, and I do communicate a lot with the community, but I can't expect. I don't think that somebody should expect me to know about all the snub ins and outs stuff, because I don't do that stuff. And even if I were to be an admin, I mean, I would try to become aware of what is being used and what's not. But we do have to just assume the best about people, I guess, is the takeaway.
Yeah, one thing
sure.
if I can jump in, I think first of all, when we talk about Dennis, and I'm not sure if you guys know this, but he plays Gallia, and I play Gallia, and without GMS, FLG would never exist, because GMS are Gallia. So I talk to him a lot. I don't think this is it. I'm pretty sure that he basically listened to Haste. He listened to the guys that actually do PvP, and they told him that this is an exploit, right? So and then he tries to deal with it because he's the only actual real active admin. And I think this is why I think first of all, I don't really feel any regrets with Dennis leaving. I think that it's just natural. He just spent so much time. His birthday is coming up. He's literally the number one history administrator in Discovery. No one will freaking replace them. Some people told me that his 100,000 posts are a joke, but I don't think so. I want to believe, I believe in Santa. I'm gonna believe in those 100,000 posts that he made on the forums.
I think they are absolutely real. Yeah.
And he's basically the face of someone who is listening to people completely outside of his circles. Trust me, I'm obviously big PvP Respawn event fan, right? And Dennis is the exact opposite. It's like, oh, you people have fun there. I was like, oh, Dennis, it's awesome. We had in Omicron U, we had 60 people, constant for over an hour, and I was like, oh yeah, you kids have fun. It sounds like fun sarcasm. And, it's like, oh, this he's always like, I hate these events. It's stupid, Why do you need an event to play the game? Just play the game, right? But the thing is that he always came, right? If you needed plugin, Jeff would know this, that Dennis was the one who implemented the PvP plugin, something he completely disagrees with. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Respawn PvP events is the complete opposite of what Dennis does, but he was the guy who listened to Jeff. Jeff helped us with the code, by the way. He came to him. He implemented the code. None of the mods came, by the way. We asked the mods, oh, can you come announce the respawns? He just PM Dennis. Oh, yeah, okay, I come, Just asking, can you announce the respawn start, respawn end? He was like, oh, I guess you are having fun or whatever. And he went back to GMS trading, I called him, can you end this event? He's like, yes. So, I think that, again, he is irreplaceable, but I don't think that people should feel regrets. I do think that for him, I spoke to him, that it is the natural time to just step down, to have fun. He's done enough for the community. He was the teacher in the kindergarten that we didn't appreciate enough, That's the role of the teachers. I think it's time for him to have fun. So, again, one more time, I know I already said that. Don't say don't make the leaving post from admin about drama. Don't say oh, these bastards with these exploits. No, it was a long-term thing. He deserves, his retirement. Explain Galia and for FLG to hand them out toilet paper, which he every time calls our propaganda that we give them,
The toilet paper?
Every time.
Really? I didn't know that.
San Dennis. 90% of the people I pirate in Discord is San Dennis. I know I should shoot them, but you know what? They always are so thankful. Thank you so much. I just needed this toilet paper when I had the propaganda. So so San Dennis, listen, appreciate him.
Say Dennis has a great sense of humor.
Exactly. Appreciate him. Don't be sad that he's leaving. I think it's just the right time, basically. I think it's time for someone else to take over. Will there be admins as good as him that can actually listen, be open, and be active as much as him? No, they won't be there. The admin team will be worse. He is irreplaceable. I don't think there should be any drama out of that. Simply say thank you, Sam Dennis. It was the right time. God knows he's done enough. And
every staff member goes through burnout, and he's had 8 years of being an admin.
He went through heavy.
So I respect.
It was the heavy decision. If you scroll down to the heavy decision that almost all the developers were banned in that time. Sam Dennis was one of those OGs that actually banned them. So. He goes a really long way back, and he still works with these people,
That's a meme, to this day.
It is, and he still works with them. So if you are an aspiring admin, listen, I know it's just for fun. I know it's fun to be edgy. We have so many mods, I won't name any names, that they do the mod work, but they go into the chat, they troll, they have very polarized opinions, very simplistic opinions, instead of asking questions, I know it's for fun, and this is your form of payment that you get to be edgy. But if you can find it a little bit, remember this old timer who was the most legendary admin in Disco, who was asking questions, who was actually helping out with his precious time with those idiotic respawn events. He would never play because it's the worst thing ever. I think that basically people like that, we need to keep the community going. Someone that doesn't approve, doesn't enjoy what the other people do. He doesn't want to do it, would never do it in a million years. But he understands it, and if he's on staff, he actually helps them out so they can have fun, even though he completely disagrees with the necessity of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that he did a fantastic job in his time there. And, nothing but thanks to him and respect. I do think that this particular topic got way too much.
Let's move on.
Let's move on, guys. As forum topics
we talked
really do.
Too much NASCAR, too much NASCAR today.
There's never too much NASCAR. What are you talking about? We got to kick this guy off the show.
So the next topic is NASCAR, right?
Oh yeah, of course. On to the next topic. No, I actually have a take on this here real quick. Just as far as St. Denis specifically. So I do echo what you guys are saying. Anytime I started up a faction or had any sort of request or even PMs, St. Denis always within 24 hours. I can't think of one time where it went a few days with nothing. I felt like he was always kind of on the ball and really a good for the community. However, I don't think I quite get behind how he's irreplaceable. One of my takes about the community as a whole is recruiting people to the staff. I think there are people in this community that may not be as good as St. Denis in some regards, but may even be better in other regards. So I don't want to put like like this guy is the best and this guy's the best. I think we all come with a buffet of skills and traits that can be a good for the community. And if it is burnout, which I do agree with, I think the guy just got burnt out. And I mean, shoot, even we as players, we get burnt out just from dealing with the typical, without saying names, the typical people that kind of sour the mood. But to that regard as well, I think it would help to recruit and bring more people into staff. Now, does that mean have a staff panel of 10 admins? No, we'll maybe have 2 or 3 top admins, but then have people under that in a sub admin role that can pick up the slack of or do the more mundane tasks of being an admin. I think there is room to grow the staff team in Discovery, which could alleviate some of that stress on admins and moderators and developers for that matter. I rarely,
certainly at the least, if it can increase our communication between everybody, that would be great.
Definitely, yeah. Or even, this is an idea that's just thought of earlier today, but even like a liaison role. Somebody, kind of going back to talking about admins being involved with things outside of their circles. Well, maybe they have people on their staff that, okay, that's my PvP guy, that's my econ guy, that's my mining guy, and that's my science exploration guy. Maybe reach out.
That's what I
to
do
these
with my
people
feedback people.
So, yeah. I mean, shoot, Zentor, your people is the community because you reach out to everybody and but I mean that's what you do, and then you do reach out to people outside of the circles as well. I think there needs to be overall more of that. So I think in this case, if that was done, maybe that means that St. Denis would still be an admin. He doesn't feel as much burnout because he doesn't do as much, or maybe he still leaves around this time because he's he is just absolutely burnt out from doing this for 8 years. But I definitely think there needs to be changes in the staff of the community, which would help, with the burnout of our staff.
Now.
Yes, start recruiting. But yes, I definitely echo what you guys said. I've had my own issues with St. Denis. I won't talk about it on the show, but I've had my issues with him. I felt like we were able to talk through them and get through them. I definitely have my, I'm critical about him, but hey, I'm critical about everybody, including myself. So, but yeah, definitely, I don't think this should be like, like a sad or angry moment. I feel like this is one of those moments where, somebody great is going in retirement, but quite honestly, I would not be surprised if the guy's back in a few months.
I doubt it. I really think
maybe he just needs a break and come back.
I really doubt it. Yeah.
I just need to segue into the events. Is it the next topic?
Yes, that is the next
topic.
So
I will literally segue into this, and I will talk about events. I think if you guys don't know, I've done a bunch of them. I work with all sorts of different admins, even Jeff that actually runs this podcast. And one thing is events and admins and events makers. The problem with being an admin and especially making events is it's a brutally thankless thing. No matter what happens, every single event, people will complain. Unlike when you have a faction, when you're a dev, right? When you're a dev, like Reeves talked about it. Listen, I'm a dev now, and I'm restarting Xenos, right? I'm adding like a Mine, docking point, and obviously you start there because you know them, you're a dev, you start with that. But when you're an admin, you just hurl out negativity. You're like, oh, listen, you fucked up, you use this exploit that Haste is telling me that I have to now sanction you for, it's my name out there. I'm putting out the actual sanction. Events are an extreme because even if it is your own faction, the like conception of the big ones, that the ones that are actually successful, you have to think about a lot of variables. You have to come together. Like Omicron U, we had like 5 people working on that one, and it's pretty much never worth it. So I think that the staff turnaround is most brutal with events. We had Jamie, probably don't remember him, guys. Kloppy was doing events. He said that he enjoys them, but he also he's gone. We had other guys as well, but I think like 4 admins left that were active on events. Skorak was the same. Like he got pissed because the feedback for one event. I think it was a big reason why he actually left. So when it comes to events, you need the people that are crazy enough to actually spend their time organize them. And I'm sorry to be negative here, but if you're thinking about organizing events, it's not gonna be worth it for you. Okay. Doing it literally for the community, it will never go the way that you want it. But it's basically one of the most vital things. You just need people to do them. I'm not sure how to actually reward them. I actually am really glad that what you're doing, Zentor, and what Haste is doing with making them easier with the pop-up menus and stuff like that. That's definitely going to be better and better. But yeah, events are vital. The biggest problem with events is the organizers find them who actually want to organize events and who will not burn out after a couple. It just happened every single time with admins especially. So yeah, being an admin, it's very difficult. Events is the exhibit A of selfless, tedious work where something will go wrong every single time. And that's why I don't think it's easy for the staff to find admins. They need to find someone active. They need to find someone who will be balanced, who will listen to other people. For example, with Dennis, we disagreed many times. He always listened to me, right? Like he listened to my point of view, Mm-hmm. And as I told you, he even helped out with stuff he completely hates in the end, God knows that we had many arguments as well. So you need someone like that. He has to be active, and they have to basically be completely selfless and do this job. And events are some of the toughest things to do because there's so many variables you have to think about that it's very tough to have like one person doing them constantly. It's going to be tough. I'm not sure what the solution is there, but I think that's the problem with admins because you get basically nothing for being an admin. You have some sense of power, but you don't get any pixels. You don't get to change the game permanently. It's like when a dog pisses on the corner, that's what devs do and systems do, right? Even though people, again, hate it and disagree with you, at least you have your mark on the game. I think that's the problem from admin perspective. You have to trust people and have all these attributes that, that they actually have to have, So it's tough, and events are the number one topic where it's showing that it's very difficult to get to people organizing them.
Well, yeah, event coordination is definitely a quick burnout path. What were we going to say, Racer?
Just as far as what Lemon was talking about with doing admin work or events and how it's thankless. Yeah, I mean that's why it's special when someone comes along and they want to do the work because it's not really something that you want to do. It's not a glorious position. You're not going to receive praise by everybody. You're going to piss some people off and you're going to make some people unhappy. That's just the nature of the beast. You have to do it because there's something greater than yourself, and in this case, it's this game freelancer. It's the community. That's the thing that is greater than yourself. So whether it's you're doing public service, nonprofit organization work, you're I can't think of the word, but wow, I'm drawing a blank here. But where you go out and volunteer. You go out to go out volunteer. You're not doing it necessarily for the thanks or for the praise. You're doing it because
doing it altruistically.
But even going to the point of events and having admins, why not have like a sub admin role for that? That can.
I said this 3 years ago, like literally like half a year into Discovery.
I've also propped up this idea too.
And that's exactly
directly to Haste.
That's exactly coming to my point. Is you can have like 2 or 3 or 4 top admins that are kind of like fitting the role of like the Tunical, St. Dennis, Garrett Jackson. He was here.
Yes,
filling those roles as kind of head of community. But have those sub roles where you instead of reaching out to those guys right away, reach out to these other guys, because then what they can do is say, oh, okay, this is a good idea. let me get a hold of, whoever, St. Dennis. Let me get a hold of St. Dennis. Let me get approval, and then, let's make this happen. So that way St. Dennis doesn't have to do the things. He can still focus on the more important things, or even take a break, focus on his personal stuff. So, yeah, absolutely 100%. There needs to be sub roles of admins and even moderators to that point. There's no reason why there can't be, people moderator roles, just fly around and check things out, invisible. And then they report to the main moderator staff.
Events are the number one. The thing is, this is why like years ago, I said that there should be an events admin. Exactly what you say, Racer. That they don't have to give a single crap about sanctions, right? They don't have to sanction people. They don't have to do the admin. The problem is, like, if you become an admin and there's so much work undone. Now, basically, 90% of admin work was done by Dennis, right? So now if they bring an admin in who can do it, they're like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that, right? But exactly, I agree.
There should be a dedicated events admin.
Yeah.
And my previous freelancer server, there was one actually.
Yeah,
I've pointed this out.
And it's not just, by the way, it's not just for the. It's not just like a lot of staff are thinking, oh, if I'm going to be an events admin, I have to come up with events. I actually think that that's not the case at all. Now it actually is spread out. Jeff, that is not here, unfortunately. He has somewhat.
Yeah, he got to come back, man.
Yeah, he somewhat fulfilled the role of this recently. That players knew, no official role. He was just like playing with the code. People knew that they can come to him, and he will write the code for them. And then you had Dennis. He would just send it to him, and Dennis just plugs it into the server, right?
Yeah, so you could farm the creation of events to the community, and then your advanced admin would just be the guy to hook it up.
Yeah, so people would know that if I want a community event, listen, I want a community event, I want a Titan to come in, in the middle of it, because, why not? You will know who to actually go to. So basically community events, if you wanted to, would have, as it happens, again, we started doing this with some of the respawns, but you would have some extra, for example, you spawn a POB and it would be a community event, and you would have one guy that would not have to take care of sanctions. He would not have to warn people in Bastille. He'll only be there basically to facilitate player ideas, come to him, help them out with the plugin. I know, Zentor, you're doing great work on it actually being straightforward. So it can be what Eraser said. After that is done, the interface, where you don't have to code it in hard code it in, it will be easier to done by a lot more people. To actually have someone who is dedicated to this, and then if, for example, the POBs can't, I know Einar is actually working on this. There are people on staff that are working on this, and they can reach out to someone, but they are the events coordinator, who can help them out with the technical side and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary. They will probably burn out anyway, even though they work on only on events. It's like the dark arts teacher in Harry Potter, like this is how I feel like. You become the events coordinator. You gotta leave like within one semester. You're gone from Discovery. Not just quit the admin team. Are gone. This happened.
I didn't get that reference right away.
So yeah, I was brought back in with haste to the development team. I was trying to find this niche actually, and part of why I was brought back was to spearhead events coordination. But immediately I started tackling writing an events editor, which is what I'm working on at the moment, and that way we can actually plug these in a lot easier and quicker. And but yes, I think that there should be somebody that's dedicated, that has the access that they need to create all this stuff and not have to rely on another admin, and just be that go-to guy for coordinating these things. So
and that way too, the word admin, especially with Discovery, it's just, I don't know, I equate it to the sheriff, or something bad, almost like the principal.
Do you prefer Game Master? Not Game Master, but Game Master. We had a few years back.
GMs, I prefer admins, honestly. I don't think of it as the sheriff like you do. So my experience with admins from Freelancer way back when I first came to Freelancer in 2005 or whatever, is we had a staff of admins, and they each had an area that they oversaw. As far as moderating and everything, we did have a really strong team of moderators that would try and keep players in line, both on back then we had Ventrilo, we had one central Ventrilo, and then we had the in-game moderators. But our admins, they each had an area of gameplay that they were over, and we had one that was specifically a tournaments and events admin. And so I always thought of them as like pillars of the leadership of the community at that time. We didn't have dedicated. We didn't have devs that were like in the position that they are on Discovery. We had a circle of contributors that added to the mod, but the events, we had, an events admin. They all still did some of like sanctions and warnings type stuff. They kind of shared the load, but we didn't have a ton of those need anyway to like hammer people on. But yeah, the admins had their own little area of games that they were over.
Right. I think that's done for the topic, right? So, for the events. Do you have any questions about events, guys? I don't know, like, you want to know anything about them? I think we talked about it enough, though.
Yeah, I think that I got everything I needed out of that. Particularly, Racer, did you have any questions for Lemon on this?
No, not really any questions. Just let the community do the work. Admins. You guys just plug in the cables.
But
yeah. I mean, they could certainly be a balance check, like, okay, we're not going to hand out credits for this. This is silly, but
actually, one thing I want to say.
Well, yeah, but like if
sorry, go ahead.
If the first Armada wants to put in like $100 million as a credit, you do things like that. But
$100 million, like real life dollars, yeah.
Yeah, real life. I will participate in every single event. I will join First Armada.
One last thing. I want to give shout out to the 46th Fleet, 5th Fleet, and the Order. I think that their triple event idea, because they're starting out, I know Slappy the Roach is not very used to this. I think it's really good that they made a chain of 3 events, because it basically allows you to fuck up in the first one. There were like clear issues with the design of it. But basically, you try it out, right? And then you can fix it for the next one. So they're making it better. And then if you screw up as well, then you can jump onto the third one. And I think the third event in this chain, I think that's going to be like an amazing event for sure. Hopefully, people will still keep interest. That's sometimes a problem with events. You have the same theme. It drops off by 30 to 50, sometimes even 80%. But for those guys to actually try making events, I think it's a really good idea to just make a chain and adapt and change that.
So, are you aware, Lemon, that Zentor and I almost derailed your first event?
You have to be more specific.
He's talking about the new
one and new. the one and new. The
respawn event.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. So when the NPCs started showing up and everyone was kind of trying to ban you eliminated the respawn. So once you're dead, you're dead. And all the nomad NPCs were around. So Zentor and I were flying around in camera ships, and for whatever reason, they kept aggroing us. So
one thing I want to say: don't let Haste hear this, because you will guys get banned and you will get all your ships taken. Okay, so. Listen, whatever you say,
Rip.
Discovery,